I know people say this and they say it sort of as a joke, but I really am going to pay you. She's going to come round, I'm going to wheel Liz out every time I have to do anything. I was talking to somebody in the audience earlier on about my presentation style, and I normally start off by saying to people, I am genuinely like Marmite. You will either love me or hate me, but I'm true to myself. I will tell you what I think, and I can only present in one way, and that's from the heart. So if you're expecting something really straight-laced, boring, and lots of spreadsheets and things like that, that's not me. So apologies up front for anybody who wants that, but there's a door over there and you can move very quickly. As Liz said, I've got 3 roles currently. Chairman of the BIFM, phenomenally proud to be in that position because I think FM is a magic profession and I've been in it for a long time and I don't change how I feel about it. Head of Corporate Services at Channel 4, which includes FM within its remit. And Channel 4 is a fantastic place, absolutely amazing place to work. And then I'm Julie Kortens. And it's going to be really strange for me going out next year and just selling Julie Kortens. So this is my first opportunity. You're my guinea pigs. I was asked today to talk about business relationships. And for me, that summed it up. Ditch the contract. And no apologies to anybody in this room who is a procurement specialist. Within my remit, I manage procurement. So I know how fundamentally important contracts are. But if you don't have a relationship, there's no point having a contract. So that's my starting point for the day. Or for the sorry, you haven't got me for the day, for the next half an hour. And it's interesting, I sat there through the panel session, then through Jason's session. A lot of the things that were said, I'm going to say. And I'm going to make no apology for repeating them, because if they're important enough to say in 3 sessions, they're important enough for me to still have on my presentation. So you'll see some things that come forward. You're looking at your watch already, have you had enough? Sorry. Okay. I mentioned that I'm not about KPIs, SLAs and things like that. And a lot of the things that I'm going to tell you, you will know and you'll think, that's common sense. But I've been to lots of conferences. I went to one a couple of years ago where a guy stood up on the stage and he was so proud of his spreadsheets. That's absolutely fine. Spreadsheets have a place. But he was so proud of the fact that he had a spreadsheet for monitoring the performance of his service provider. That spreadsheet included the KPIs, the SLAs, what date they brought their reports in, all of those kind of things. Not once did it mention people. Not once. The way I view it is, you wouldn't have that contract if it wasn't compliant. You wouldn't have that contract if it wasn't commercially sound. You wouldn't have that contract if your service provider, your service partner, didn't deliver something that satisfied legislation. So in my presentation, take it as read that all those things are in place. So, that's right. Piece of paper. What do we think the piece of paper is? Go on, Tanya, what's a piece of paper? It's the contract. That's how I view the contract. It's a piece of paper. Your contract is your last resort. Of course it gives you safeguards. Of course it gives you ways out if there's a difficulty. But if you get to a point where you're enforcing a contract, you haven't got a relationship. And one of the things I did quite early on at Channel 4 was stop calling anybody who, I'll be careful with my words, managed a contract an FM manager. We stopped calling people that, because actually the guys and the girls who were doing the managing were the service provider, the people who were partnering with us to provide the service. My guys manage supplier relationship, and we thought, actually, I don't think they even do that. They're supplier relationship specialists, because I feel very strongly, if you have to manage your relationship, you actually don't have a relationship. And I said this at Workplace Futures, I think it was last year. There's a guy on the stage talking about managing that relationship with your service providers. And I said, well, it's not a relationship. If you think about home, your partners, your children, your family, you don't manage your relationship with your husband or your wife, do you? You have a relationship with your husband or wife. If you're having to manage it, you're already on that slippery slope. So I think very strongly that a relationship has to be two-sided. You don't manage that relationship, you work on that relationship. So another thing with a contract, if you stick to the contract and if you stick to the clauses, you lose that, sorry, you have to stick to the clauses. I'm trying not to be flippant, but if you only ever refer to the clauses, you're not bouncing ideas off each other. You're not being flexible. You're not talking about the art of the possible. Because if you say, well, we will only clean the kitchens at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and that's it, well, that's actually being that sort of tactical, operational level. And you want to think beyond that. You want to think about this as a partnership and as a business relationship. So how did I then think? Oh, I'm sorry, another thought. And I'll do this, I'll keep going back to thoughts, which is like Liz said, all I do is think about the 30 years I've been doing FM and the examples that come up. How many of you look back and think, I had the most amazing contract with British Airways or with Mighty or whoever? You don't. You go back and you think, I had a most fantastic relationship. They helped me, they worked with me, they delivered with me, they went the extra mile for me. Those are the people you remember. And likewise, the service provider will say, wasn't it fantastic working at Capita? Wasn't it fantastic working at Betfair? Because they remember that relationship with the person. If you don't, then I think it's a bit sad. Those relationships matter. So, what do I think? I think managing your business relationship is very much like managing other relationships. What's important? Marriage guidance. And it's quite funny, I said to Liz, I was going to talk about marriage guidance. And she said, well, Kentish & Co. were starting to brand themselves as marriage guidance for FMs. So obviously it's something that's out there. And you look at this, you know, the lady goes in, these are the faults that I need you to correct. If you go into any relationship with that mindset, it's not going to work. And things that I thought about. Well, sorry. I was talking to a lady at work who's doing an MSc in positive psychology. And one of the things that she's learned is the traits you show at home are the traits you will show at work. So forgive me, if you're a bully at home, you're going to be a bully at work. If you're somebody who lays over and plays dead at home, you're going to do that at work. So there are lots of synergies here. And what can we learn about those personal relationships? So one of the things that I think is really important is the conversation. Sorry, it seems ever so quiet in here. Really, really quiet. It's like, am I just loud? How you talk to people, fundamentally important. And one of the things that this lady was telling me was, say yes. And I don't mean saying yes to be compliant. I mean say yes to be positive. So if somebody tells you something, they say, Tanya, I love your green dress. Let's wear green dresses together in future. And you think, what enough idea. You actually say, yeah, let me think about that. You know, so you put the yes in first, or yes, let's do that, or yeah, I'll have a go, but it may not work for us. Start using positive language and do that with your suppliers, with your partners in the workplace. And again, sticking to psychology, there are lots of studies about how couples behave. And when I say couples, read supplier, client, and how they work together. And there's this one study where they had groups of married couples in a room. And you'll have done it before. They asked them to build a bridge. And all they had was paper. And you had the couple over here, happily married. And I'm just going to do this in this order that the woman happens to speak first. But the woman says, right, we could fold it, we could build it, we could, you know, do this, X, Y, Z. And the husband said, great idea, let's give it a go. Fantastic. Over here, we have the less happily married. And the lady said, I think we could fold it. And he said, shh, shh. He said, oh, we could, shh. I'm thinking. That's not communicating. That's not having a relationship. And I think you can take that back into the office. You can take that back into your place of work. Communicate with each other. Talk about your ideas. Bounce off each other. So positivity really does work, or at least I think it does. Okay. The starting point for your contract is actually quite hard. That very first thing when you greet the person you're working with, do you shake your hand? Do you hug? Do you do this? I remember my son, who thankfully is not here today, but my son is a little boy coming home and saying, Mum, I've got a date. That sounds fantastic. He said, yeah, it's Thursday. So Thursday he gets suited and booted, ready to go out. I said, you ready? He said, yeah. He said, but Mum, what do I do when I see her? Do I shake her hand? I went, no. He said, do I kiss her? I went, no. Yeah, it is actually difficult. So in your personal life, that initial contact is really quite hard. I mean, I'm northern, as you can probably tell. I hate the double kiss. I can't stand it. So I do one kiss and people turn their cheek and I go, oh! But getting to know each other well and understanding how to greet each other is really, really important. And I'm going to go back to Liz, because Liz is a phenomenal role model. At Channel 4, we have one of the best reception teams, I think, in the UK. without doubt. They happen to be mine, so I'm going to be proud of them, but they're a fantastic team. People who greet them, say hello to them, make them feel good, are always remembered. And Liz is one of them. She remembers their name, she always talks to them. That meeting and greeting is so, so very important. I actually had to tell my senior client side team to say hello to receptionists and security officers. I had to tell them this. This is going back years. But you have to sometimes say, make an effort. They're human beings, make them feel welcome, talk to them. They do it all the time now. And it feels like a team. But as a leader, and a lot of you in this room would be leaders of your teams, just remember those little things that are important. They matter to the person on the other side of the desk. They matter to you. It helps build a team and helps build a relationship. I loved the presentation this morning by Jason, the Red Arrows guy. Absolutely fantastic. If there was one thing I didn't agree with, which worked for the Red Arrows, don't think it works for us, is using the job titles when you're having a conversation. You know, hello, building supervisor, how are you today? You know, or that kind of thing. Even a difficult conversation, it's a relationship. So you actually go and say, Julie, I've got a problem, I need to talk to you. Not head of corporate services, what are we going to do about it? It worked for him, but it's really, really important. You know your people, you know their names, and you deal with them and talk to them as human beings. Where do I point it? Honesty. This is one of the themes that came out earlier, and Jason said this as well. It is the best policy. I have come a cropper quite a few times in my life by telling that little white lie. That little white lie gathers momentum, it gathers moss, and it gets bigger and bigger, and you think, why the hell did I say that? Because I can't get out of it now. Always be honest, always tell the truth. People depend on you. They depend on you as a role model. They depend on you to tell the truth, to give them that honest feedback. And if you can't give them that honest feedback, you're failing in your duty. Your word is your bond. It's your guiding principle. Why promise to deliver something if you can't do it? You're starting off. It's much, much easier to say, hear what you're saying. Yes. And I say, yes, I'd love to do it, but actually I can't at the moment. How many times have we all said yes to an event and on the day thought, I don't want to go. I really, really, really don't want to go. We do it all the time. It's far, far better to take the plunge right at the beginning and say, yes, it sounds fantastic, but actually, do you mind? I'm busy that night or I can't do it. Or, really honestly, it's not for me. You know, it's not for me. Thanks, sounds great, but, you know, not for me. We've done it at dinner parties where somebody says, Howard, here's some fish soup, and you think, God, I hate fish. And what do? You sip it, and you move it, well, you might not, yeah. You move it to one side, or you try, because you think, this person has spent all night making this dinner. I can't let them down now. Actually, it's easy to say, really sorry, I don't eat fish, or I don't like it. So I'm just saying, honesty, we respect each other for it. And actually, you know what it's like? Somebody in your team comes in and they say, Julie, I'm sorry I'm late, you know, the cat caught fire, whatever. You don't think that's a lie. You actually think, do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I'm stupid that I'm actually thinking that the cat caught fire? And sorry, a bad example, I know. I don't even have a cat. I don't like cats. So, but it's really, really important that you treat people with respect. Most people can tell when somebody's lying. Most people go red, they itch their ear, they point their nose, whatever. Most people know if you're lying. So honesty, always, always the best course of action. So I talked about, this is broken promises now. And I go back to sort of meeting deadlines. You set a deadline for your team. You ask them to deliver to that deadline, so you have to do exactly the same. So if you say to your client, to your service provider, we need to do X, Y, Z by the 10th of January, make sure you do it by the 10th of January. Because if you don't, they lose all respect for you. And how many times do you see as well, somebody on the other side of the table having worked really hard and you go to a meeting and people ignore it? Because actually they haven't done their homework. Stick to your deadline, stick to what you promise. It's really, really, really important. And don't promise something if it's not necessary. Again, just be honest up front. So I was going to take this slide out. This was winging it this morning. I mean, you talked about winging it so much. Absolutely, within FM, we wing it. There's no doubt about it. I don't think there's a person in this room who hasn't one day got up and not been prepared and gone off and done something. And so, oh my God, I should have prepared. I think what the most important thing Jason said earlier on was about the juggling the balls. We all juggle so many things, but there are certain things you mustn't wing. We shouldn't wing, because it's our reputation that's at stake. And one of those things for me is those client-facing service provider meetings. They are really, really important, whether it be a monthly meeting, quarterly meeting, the annual review, whatever it is. They're really, really, really important to your relationship. So prepare for that. And again, I remember a story. I happened to be working with Mighty Client Services. They had done the most amazing document. What it was about is sort of academic to now, but it's the most amazing document. Colourful. You could tell there were photographs of the team in it. They spent a long time working on it, and I couldn't make the meeting. I asked for a copy of the documents. I got it. The person who represented me at the meeting said, "Oh, this is fantastic, but let's not use that. Let's do something else." They were the most deflated team because, like Mark said earlier on, they'd spent months preparing it. And it was months that was really, really important. So make sure that you're prepared and make sure you recognise that other people are prepared for what they're doing as well. Okay, so this one's about meetings. And what I'm asking you to do is to be, and if you take just one or two things away from what I'm saying today, I'll be really happy. This one I think is an important one. I think about this genuinely as the client. Years ago, it used to be very much a master-slave relationship, and I think that is appalling. What is fantastic about FM of today, it's true partnership. The experts, the experienced people are predominantly service providers. Clients are the ones who are working with them. Never, ever, ever go into a meeting and not allow the other party to speak. There are sadly still people out there who are saying, right, it's my way or no way. I hear what you're saying, but actually I'm going to do something different. There is true partnership when you both speak, you both say what needs to be said, you're honest, you're open, you're acting with integrity, and you give everybody a chance. Body language in a meeting is phenomenally important too, and I'll come to that in a second. But please give everybody a fair crack of the whip. That's so important. And another thing I'd say on that, if you think about meetings, again, how many of us have been to a meeting, 1, 2, 3 hours, whatever, you come out and think, oh God, why didn't I say that? Why didn't I do it? I went in intending to do it and I never said it. So in meetings, make sure you make the most of them, say what needs to be said, let other people say what needs to be said. At least you all leave knowing you put your cards on the table. And if you're going to a meeting, pay attention. How many times have you gone to a meeting and somebody start like this? You know, like this. I've had 2 examples that I'll quote. I was really geared up for a really important meeting at Channel 4. This is quite a while ago. I went in to see my director, walked in the room, and she sat there writing something, doing this. She said, right, Julie, off you go. Never even noticed that in a second. It must have been 2 or 3 minutes before she looks up, and I'm sat there like this. She said, what's the matter? I said, I am not going to even start if you're not speaking to me. And she went, oh, sorry. And she said to me later, it's one of the most important lessons she learned, because I had the guts to say to her, you're not even listening to me. What's the point? And another example, I was actually at a board meeting, and a head of IT came into this board meeting. And I say head of IT, she was actually relatively junior at the board meeting I was at. She had prepared long and hard. At this board meeting, 2 board members got out their laptops and started dealing with their emails. And I could see the discomfort on her face. And you thought, please, come on. I mean, yes, I tell them not to do it, but these are grown people. And they do disrespect. You've got to remember. And it's sitting there. Technology, I mean, Liz said earlier, you know, we say to people, keep your phones on. Again, there's a time and place. If somebody, particularly somebody who's junior, has come to a meeting, or anybody's come to that meeting, they've prepared long and hard, give them that attention. Talk to them. Listen to what they're saying. Because even if you think it's low level or off target or whatever it is, they have sweated blood and guts to get to that point. Okay, communication. Communication for me is phenomenal, and I'm going to bring this back to the marriage guidance. We've got to communicate with people. We've got to tell them what it is we want. How many women, ladies in this room, think, God, I wish my man would do the washing? Why is it always me that does the washing? I mean, I do every weekend. I think I've got 2 men at home and I'm always doing the washing. That's because I don't tell them to do it. And my husband always says to me, you've got to remind me. And I think, but why do I need to remind you? He said, because I'm a man. And it's not a male-female thing, it's just a fact. I'm sure there's things I don't do that, he thinks. But communicate, say, not only do I need you to do the washing, I need you to do it on Saturday morning. And because I'm going shopping, I'm going to text you to remind you. You need that communication. And I know it sounds really silly, but we very often have a situation where we're thinking, why don't they do it? Well, they don't know that they're not doing it, whatever it is. So it's really, really important that we actually do talk about it and talk about what it is that we need doing. So, and not just at meetings. For me, communication is ongoing. You communicate with people all the time. It's eye contact, it's verbal, it's non-verbal, it's being silent, it's always communicating. And I remember, for me, again, one of the important lessons, we made an announcement at Channel 4 that our chief executive was leaving. Who was the first person I told? If you guess this, I'll be really surprised that you're a psychic, but the receptionist. Because that person is the front of Channel 4. And people are going to come in and say, what's this news about? It happened to be Andy Duncan, about Andy leaving. And if they don't know, then I'm not doing my job. They're fundamental to the team. The reception team are the eyes, the ears, the face of Channel 4. So it's really important that you don't just communicate, you communicate with the right people about the right things at the right time. And what I do is think every single staff meeting I have, doesn't matter whether you're on the service provider side, the client side, you're all welcome. Everybody's welcome. And you're welcome to hear it from me, not third-party Chinese whispers. It's an open invitation. So at a lot of my meetings, one of the cleaning team will come because they hear it and they know what's happening. Never underestimate the importance of communication, general communication. Manage expectations. It's really, really important that you don't ask the impossible of people. If you want something doing, make sure it's realistic and it's achievable. I mean, one of the bugbears for me in any contractual negotiation is, oh, I'm the client, you're the service provider, I need you to be innovative. Really? Okay. In what? Doing what? When? How? Step change? Revolution? What do you mean? It's really, really, really important that you're on the same page, not the contract page, the page up here, which is actually, what do you need from me? When do you need it by? Can I achieve it? And actually, what's the reward if I do? And what's the penalty if I don't? Have that conversation. So, okay. Above all, and this is sort of, for me, encompassing everything, act with integrity. It's really, really important that whatever you do reflects on you as an individual. So being honest is important, being truthful, setting a good example, giving people time to speak. You act with integrity, it reflects well on you. It also reflects well on your organisation, whatever your organisation is. If you consistently miss your deadlines, your business has a bad reputation. But more importantly for me, so does FM. FM is an amazing profession, and I ask everybody, and I'm sure you all do, act with integrity because it reflects on us. We want to grow as a profession, we want to be up there, we want to be with the major stakeholders. If we act with integrity, we'll be there, we'll naturally come on that journey. Keep pointing at that. So in terms of takeaway, the kind of things I said today was relationships matter. It's not all about the contract. And in fact, if you think again as another example, I'm sure people in the room, you have ultimately probably made friends with people who are on the other side of the fence for you. If you have a good relationship, that relationship develops and you actually make friends. That shows it was a real relationship. And if you're sat there thinking, oh God, should I invite her to that drinks because actually I'm crossing the line, actually the relationship's working because they're your friend as well. So that's a fantastic sign. Don't abuse that relationship. Don't take it for granted. You have to, despite what I said earlier, continue to work at it. Not manage it, but work at it. If you go into a meeting and somebody's got, they look like thunder, ask them why. I can tell you're not happy today. Can I help? Is there anything I can do? What is it? And I had a session once at Liz's panel this morning. We were asked the question, does culture affect how you talk to people? And actually I do remember we had a group of Malaysian students who came into Channel 4 and lots of lovely, lovely people, architectural students who'd come across on a trip. And culturally, they weren't out there. They weren't putting themselves forward. It's very, very quiet. I saw this one lady and she kept going and kept stopping herself. But I could see there was an issue, and this came back to the communication, the body language, the meeting, and I said, you want to ask a question, don't you? I said, well, feel free. You can ask me anything. And she said, it's very personal. And I thought, oh my God, what have I done? What's coming now? All she wanted to ask me was actually how I got the job I got. But she was so pleased. The first thing she did when she left the room was connected with me on LinkedIn. She tweeted about me because I'd seen that she wanted to say something. So again, never underestimate that people might want to say something, but you've got to coax it out of them. So be honest, act with integrity. Don't wing it. Never show somebody you're bored or their company doesn't matter to you. That's it, really. Yeah.